Hello ladies and gents. We're doing a cold open today because I'm a little lazy and don't want to film anything else to like ease into this. Today I wanted to just kind of do a video that's more for myself really. Just don't know if you guys will find it entertaining. But I want to do kind of like a 2022 year recap. It's December 26th right now, so happy holidays if you celebrated Christmas this weekend. And I just want to do this video more so for me because I want to be able to look back and remember how hard this year was. Because it's good right now, like it's really great, but I want to be able to remember how hard this year was and how far I've come. And I'm hoping that in years to come, I can look back at this video and be like, wow, and just like compare in a really great way. So that's kind of why I'm doing this. But if you also want to hear about how this year went and my mental breakdowns, please stay tuned. You're welcome to watch. I will start with, and I'll see if I can include like any pictures or videos as like an overlay as applicable to kind of add a little bit more excitement. This year was a big year. It was probably one of the biggest years that I've had as far as just like so much change happening, and it was honestly one of the hardest years of my life. Second only to the year that I dropped out of law school. That one was really brutal, and I'm honestly not quite sure anything will beat that year. But this year in January, we moved from Phoenix, Arizona to where we are now, which is Denver, Colorado. And we put our house up for sale the first week of January. So it's coming up on almost exactly a year ago. And we flew out to Denver that first weekend of January to meet our real estate agent and look at houses with the hopes of maybe putting a contingent offer down, which was completely unrealistic at the time because at this time, a year ago, the housing market was absolutely bananas. Houses weren't staying on the market for any more than 24 hours. It was insanity. But we met our real estate agent and we had a great time out here, and it reaffirmed that we really wanted to move out here. And the whole entire time that we were gone, we had people looking at our house in Phoenix. When we got back, within a day of our return, we had a full price cash offer on our house in Phoenix. And so we accepted it, and we had about just over 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, to pack up our whole entire house and move. Today, we accepted a full price, all cash offer on our house. I'm so excited. And closing is January 31st, which is in exactly 21 days. Freaking out, but also like super at peace with everything. Like, I know we're gonna get it all done. I know we're gonna get it all packed. Everything's gonna work out fine. So, I'm just sitting in my living room, just remembering what it felt like when we walked in here for the first time. And I knew as soon as I walked in that I loved this house and I wanted it to be ours. And I will always love this house because it was our first home together. It was our first house that we ever bought. And it will always be special, but I'm also very excited to find a new home and make a new house our home. And yeah, so today's a big day. Hi, editing Hannah here. I feel like we just need a transition between that old video and me just like jumping right back into the facts, because holy cow, I forgot that I had recorded that video until I was looking through my phone for pictures and I found it, and I haven't watched it since I recorded it that day. And it made me so emotional to hear like past me talk about how at peace and excited she was because I was so uncomfortable for most of this year, but I'm finally feeling that at peaceness, and it's just like, it's just reassuring and wild. Yeah, it's just crazy. So anyway, here's back to more put together me. The people who bought our house was a rental company, so they wanted us out of the house as soon as possible. They wanted a quick close, and so we were eager to move and get out here so that we could look at houses. So we agreed, and it was absolute chaos. It felt like getting our whole entire house packed up and everything, lined up and in order in just like 2 weeks time. And it really was 2 weeks time, because our real estate agent told us for the first 5 days after we accepted the offer that we shouldn't really start packing anything up just yet, because we had to go through the inspection still and make sure everything was good there. So by the time that was done, we really only did have 2 weeks to pack up our house and move. And we were packing up a 1,900 square foot home, just me and my husband packing it all up. And we also had to find a temporary place to stay out here, because we didn't have a house yet out here. We didn't know where we were going to land, and we ended up thankfully finding an Airbnb to stay at that accepted both of our dogs and our cat, because that was another challenge, is that we had 2 dogs and a cat, so it's not like we could just stay at an extended stay hotel or anything. But we found an Airbnb, and we got really, really lucky. I'm still so grateful for that Airbnb host that we had, because he was really, really kind. And I'll go into that a little bit more. But we drove out here January 31st of this year, 2022. And we did the whole drive in one day. It took us a little bit over 14 hours with the dogs and the cat, and our cat only made an escape from her crate once, so that was good. And we got here that night. We got to our Airbnb. We literally the next day, we started looking for houses with our real estate agent. So obviously the next day was February 1st. Pretty much every single weekend in February, we saw houses and we put out an offer on a house every single weekend. And each one was denied or rejected or outbeat by a better offer. And that was so hard. The hardest part was the first house that we put an offer on. We were so convinced, I was so convinced it was going to be our home. Like, I felt it in my bones, and I was so sure. And our offer didn't get accepted. And when we asked why, it was because the lending officer put on the offer letter that the offer was contingent on the sale of our home, when it wasn't. We already had the money. Our home was already sold, and that's what botched that transaction. So that was so defeating, and that was really kind of the start of my mental deterioration. But by the end of February, we had taken a look at this house that we're in now, and I actually had to go see this house by myself with a real estate agent because my husband was out of town for work. And so that I saw this house, and I went back to him, and I was just like, this is our house. We have to put an offer on it. It's pretty perfect. And so we put an offer on this house without my husband ever seeing it in person. And by the time our offer got accepted, by the time he saw the house for the first time, we were already under contract with it. So it was a really good thing that he liked it. But our offer got accepted on this house at the end of February, which was really exciting and uplifting. But part of the offer was that the previous owners had to be able to stay in this house for 60 days after closing. Because, again, the real estate market was so crazy, they needed time to make sure that they found a house to move to. And normally in those situations, you would get like a rent back. So if the owner stays in after you close, they pay you rent. But because the market was the way that it was, we were at a disadvantage as buyers at that point. So they got to stay in the house for 60 days without paying us rent. So we closed the house in March. And then we had 60 days where we were paying a mortgage and our Airbnb fees and not getting rent back from the owners living in the house. And that was really hard. the one thing that was really kind was our Airbnb host. We explained the whole situation to him, and he actually let us stay in that Airbnb for almost the entire time leading up before we moved to the house. We only had to move out of that Airbnb 10 days before we were able to move into here, and that was really, really kind of him. And he had even let us pay him through Venmo instead of the Airbnb app to avoid those extra fees. So I'm still so grateful for that host. He was amazing. He was incredible, so kind, very flexible, and such a blessing that we were able to get him as our host and be there. Now, all of that being said, and all of this ends positively, obviously. Like, I'm here, I'm in our home, everything is great. I'm so grateful for the move because I feel like it's the right thing we needed to do. I love living here. But those, 3.5 months that we were in that Airbnb, we were in there from February until May 21st. Those were really hard and really dark for me because I felt like I just was losing my mind. And I felt like it's such a frustrating feeling to know you have a home but you cannot be in it. And I'd never felt that kind of frustration before. And I just want to reiterate, I'm so grateful that we had a place to stay at all, but it was really hard. And it was such a weird period of time too, because in my business, I had just lost a bunch of clients from the move. I'm a social media manager, and so granted I work remotely, so I can pretty much work anywhere, but because of my mental state, I had lost a lot of clients, and I only had about 2 steady clients at the time. So my income was really, really low, and I wasn't doing too great in my business, and I was beating myself up for that. But then simultaneously, somehow, I was putting out more content on my own page, and I was growing from that, which was such a weird dichotomy to be feeling so dark and mentally unstable inside, and then on the exterior, my social media was doing fantastic. It was so weird to experience both of those things at the same time, because it's not like I can relate, oh, my social media was doing great because I felt like shit inside. It's just a really weird and strange experience. And in that period of time, I grew from 3,000 followers on Instagram to over 10,000 in a span of 2 months. And it was so weird, and a feeling of anticipation, and once I reach this milestone, everything's gonna change, but then nothing changed at all. It was a very strange place to be in. Oh, and then, so we had to be out of our Airbnb 10 days before we were able to move into this house. So we had a 10-day period where we didn't know where we were gonna stay. Our plan was to go up to Estes Park and camp. And we did do that for a couple days, but it was horrible. And right before we had to be out of our Airbnb, our cat, Svetlana, she injured herself pretty badly. She took a bad jump, and both of her kneecaps snapped out of position, and she wasn't able to walk. And we had to rush her to the emergency vet. And they, popped him back into place. They said it's really nothing super serious, just something to keep an eye on, and gave her pain medications because she was going to be really, really sore and in pain for 2 to 3 weeks afterwards. And so the whole entire 10 days that we were bouncing between camping, hotel, another Airbnb, our poor cat was not able to walk. She was on drugs the whole time. She was in so much pain. She was trying to hide places where we couldn't find her. It just was so stressful and so horrible. And then when we finally got into the house, of course she was freaking out about that too. And if you're not familiar with cats, cats have a really hard time with change, and they don't like change at all. And I had just felt so bad and guilty that we had subjected her to so much change in the last few months. She's doing great now. She's sitting right here. She loves this house. She's absolutely fine. No more pain. She's walking normally again. Like, she's completely healed and fantastic. But at the time, it was really hard. And that 10-day period was probably the hardest because we were so close to being in the house, but it still felt so far away. And then when we finally got here, I was just like, oh my God, yes. Like, finally. And I look back to where I was this time last year, right before we put the house up for sale. And I'm so proud of my husband and I for taking this leap of faith, because it's so wild to me to remember that when we had made this decision last year and when we had moved out here in January, we literally had no plan. We had no idea where we were going to live. We had no idea if we were going to have to be able to buy a house, or if we'd have to buy a townhouse, or if we'd have to rent an apartment instead. We didn't know. All we knew was that we wanted to be here, and we made that happen. And even though it was a really hard year to make it happen, we still did. That is a piece of me that I want to take into 2023. The ability to make decisions even if you don't know how it's going to pan out. And I'm looking at my vision board that's behind you guys on my desktop that I made for 2023. And one of the quotes is, "When it feels scary to jump, that is exactly when you jump. Otherwise you end up staying in the same place your whole life." And that's exactly what we did. Both of us were born and raised in Arizona, and we stayed in Arizona our whole life. And we felt like we needed to jump and start somewhere new. And so we did. And I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of us for doing that. And even though this year was so hard, it was the most transformative year, I think, that I've ever had. Because I lived in a state of uncomfortability for half of this year, easily. And those states of uncomfortability is where you really grow. And I grew as a person. And I feel like I'm more clear on what I want to do now. I'm more clear on the trajectory that I want my life to have. I'm more clear on when I see, 2 or 3 years in the future, I'm more clear on what I want that to look like. 2023 is going to be all about making that happen. This year was kind of just a year of change, transformation, and survival. But next year is going to be a year of growth, for sure. Stay tuned for Friday's video if you want to see what my 2023 goals are, and if you want a glimpse into my vision board, because I'll be showing all of you that later. I am excited, and I'm so grateful for this year. It was hard, but I'm very grateful for it, and I don't think I would have had it any other way. If this year was really hard for you too, I'm proud of you for getting through. I'm proud of you for surviving, because let's face it, sometimes there are just years like that where you just get by, you just survive, and that's an accomplishment. So I'm proud of you. Thanks for being here. If you want to see what my 2023 goals are, stay tuned for my video coming on Friday. I'll be delving into those, as well as my vision board, kind of walking through what's on there, what it means, what my goals are, and we're gonna make 2023 one of our best years yet, or just a really good year. Either one. Thanks for being here. If you like watching me ramble, please comment, subscribe, like this video. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how your year was down below. And I hope you guys have a happy holiday, happy new year. Thanks for being here. Bye.